Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my reaction for the Alexis Rocha versus Raul Curiel rematch. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. If you use code Axel72, you'll get 75% off the Patreon, which you can use to request any kind of combat sporting related content. I mean, this video was actually requested, and I mean, to be fair, I was going to do it anyway, but you know, it's been made a little bit earlier of a release as a result. And you can also use the Patreon for any kind of betting tips, or just to speak to general people in the boxing or fighting community. And if you're also wanting to get back into the gym to start some New Year's resolutions for January, head over to grindactivekinetics.com and use code AXEL10 and you'll get 10% off any orders if you're wanting to get yourself some new gym wear. And also a heads up, I'm a bit ill as well at the moment, so I don't know if there'll be too much enthusiasm, but I'm trying my best to get the videos out for you at the moment. But again, these next few videos might be a little rough for me. But we'll start off with the main event. I wanted to speak about another fight in this card, which I will be doing in a moment as well. But obviously this fight as a rematch is a really good fight. I mean, to be fair, the first fight was an entertaining fight, and I think this fight has been made into a bigger fight as a rematch. And also, I mean, Raul Curiel has fought since the Rocha fight, and due to, I mean, prior the kind of Curiel fight, he didn't have a lot of people really know who he was, or at least, you know, he didn't have a major pushing, or at least, you know, he wasn't getting that same kind of traction. But after the draw against Rocha, which was quite a surprise draw to be fair, he then got a big opportunity on a Jake Paul undercard, and he was able to go out there and get a knockout performance against an unbeaten opponent. And it was a very good, you know, solid performance ending with a nice knockout as well. And Curiel, as a result, has kind of been able to make a good name for himself as a Mexican power puncher, and not just a, you know, all-out war scrapper type of puncher. I mean, he's got good placement in his punches, and he does come with good power. It's not just, you know, output. It is, you know, a good level of shot placement and timing and skill behind his punches as well. And I mean, perhaps you could argue that this, for Curiel's career, is a bit of a step back. I mean, obviously, the first fight was pretty close, and I had it pretty close. It wasn't the most controversial of draws. I mean, the other fight, which is on this card, which I'm going to be talking about in a minute, is another rematch, and that fight was quite convincingly, at least in my eyes, not a draw. I thought it was very clear that one person won, but where in this one, I mean, it was a difficult one to kind of call. You could definitely have said either fighter had won, but again, it was a pretty difficult one to call. But obviously, like I touched upon, this could be made or seen as a bit of a step back for Curiel. I mean, when you kind of can read through the comments of his last win, you don't really see anybody calling or caring for the Alexis Rocha rematch. Obviously, that's just her comment section, so I mean, it's not, you know, the grand overarching kind of opinion, but still, that was a world kind of title eliminator, and I mean, there was no kind of real push, or at least from Curiel. Maybe the opportunities weren't available, but I just didn't see any kind of push for him to then go on to maybe become, you know, a force of mandatory fight, you know, with somebody like a Sissoko, or get himself in a real number one position, or, you know, even get himself a title shot. Again, all these kind of options just didn't really happen. And again, they might not have been available. I mean, Sissoko has always been a difficult person to, you know, get a matchup with, and he's kind of just holding his mandatory position captive. You know, the likes of like a Ben, who's ranked number one, I think, with the WBC again. I think he's waiting for the winner of Garcia versus Barrios, and of course that fight's happening. And then also, you know, with the WBA as well, which I think he was actually, you know, in the title eliminator for. He could have fought Rolly Romero, but I doubt Rolly Romero would have cared. Rolly just, I think, only really wants the huge matchups, but I just don't think anybody actually wants to give Rolly a huge matchup. I mean, I want to see Haney versus Romero, but I mean, I just don't think it's happening right now. So I just don't think that Romero cares about Curiel at the moment. And also, I mean, to be fair, Romero has a fight with Giasov that's meant to happen. It's meant to be a mandatory, but that isn't happening either. So just that kind of title eliminator, I suppose there just wasn't really any options available, which is a bit of a shame because I do feel like Curiel, if he was able to get himself in a title eliminator position, he should have then been able to progress on. Like, that's the whole kind of point of it. And I mean, credit to Rocha though for wanting to take this rematch. I mean, if he wins, he could be in line for a title shot himself. But if he doesn't, he is really, in my opinion, still giving a good stepping stone for Curiel to get a title shot himself and to make himself a bigger name in the welterweight division. I still think, I mean, that Rocha is a bigger name than Curiel. I think that's obvious with the Golden Boy backing and with the promoting and the pushing and the main events in which he's had. I mean, Golden Boy have put a lot into Rocha, expecting him to be a world title star. I assume at some point they are really wanting some kind of return of investment. I mean, I'd imagine he's been able to give some good figures with some of his fights. I mean, I remember the Blair Cobbs fight, which was a pretty good kind of selling fight for Rocha, but still, if he loses in this fight for a third time at a world kind of contender level, especially if he gets stopped badly by the power puncher, which is Curiel, like he did in the Santillan fight, they may start to question why they put this much effort into promoting him, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are, because of course, like I mentioned, he's been able to bring a bit of traction, a bit of noise, but he just hasn't progressed past that kind of certain level. And I'm sure, like I've mentioned, Golden Boy were willing to make him one of the faces of their whole brand, and they kind of have. But again, he hasn't been able to live up to the expectations, and there isn't a tremendous amount of Golden Boy names that are really big names, kind of world level names, bar your Ryan Garcias, who, and maybe, your Zer Ramirez's as well, who, are these top level guys, but I'm sure they were hoping that for Rocha, but like I mentioned, it just obviously hasn't happened so far, and this is, again, a very risky fight against, of course, a power puncher, which could lead to the downfall of Rocha's career. I mean, he's not that old, but I just, again, like I say, if he gets stopped badly again, like he did versus Santillan, which of course, I mean, didn't really age the best either, because Santillan went to lose badly to Brian Norman Jr. afterwards, he needs to be able to get a good win here, and I think it just has to happen for his career. Otherwise, of course, Golden Boy might struggle to be able to progress him back to fighting at a world level again. Rocha, as a fighter though, I think he's got better footwork than that of Curiel. I think he's got faster hands in general, a nice kind of fast jab, which he's often able to kind of pump to the body nicely, and it also can be shortened up when he's at his best quite nicely as well. He did that on a couple of occasions in the performance where I thought he was very solid, which was that Blair Cobbs fight, where he was able to really shorten up and kind of pump up and push up that jab as well, whilst also mixing it to the body as a kind of straight jab as well. He often responds back with combinations, which again can lead to him getting drawn into a war, but will also assert his presence and the fact that he is going to be, there to cause some damage. He can fight out of bad spots and bad positions. He wasn't really found in too many bad positions against Curiel, and he can also throw going backwards as well. I believe he does have heart. I mean, obviously, he has been stopped against Santillan, but Santillan's work rate was insane during that fight, and the amount of punches he threw before eventually he just was knocked out, he was able to take a lot. And I think the wars in which Rocha has been in his career, can provide the entertainment value and can attract the fans, but also does show that he does have heart. He's got good shot selection, as well, and most of the shots in which he throws, I mean, for the most part, will be thrown with intent. He's pretty good at cutting off the ring as well. Past performances against, again, the likes of a Blair Cobbs was showing that he could cut off the ring well. And when he can get that straight left hand shot down, that can be a nice shot, because if he's against somebody, I suppose not really like Curiel, but if he's against somebody who is circling around off the ring, around the ring, he can cut off the ring and then really get that straight left to time down when you're trying to circle out of that bad spot. And of course, he has been able to do that in fights in the past, but of course, I just don't think that's going to be too much on display in this fight, because I just don't see Curiel circling around on the ropes. Negatives about him: I see that he ducks down quite a lot when he is throwing, and it can mean that he can get caught with shots kind of over the top. And sometimes he's ducking down instead of actually moving out of a bad position. He's been hurt, obviously, badly, and of course Curiel hasn't. He doesn't handle a high output that well, in my opinion, and he does drop his hands a lot, leaving much more open gaps when he's throwing than that of what Curiel has, from what I believe. He's not very reactive. I think, when you are dropping your hands when you're throwing and things like that, you have to be a reactive fighter. And obviously, I wouldn't say that Curiel's a reactive fighter either, but his style doesn't leave himself as open. Whereas Rocha's, with multiple occasions, was leaving himself open to Curiel's just quite simple counters. He can get too comfortable when he's fighting. He can stay in exchanges too long. He can leave himself in range when he's throwing, which again can leave him to just getting caught with punches that are just unnecessary with his hands low. He is not the best at initiating clinches either. He can kind of rush in with his shoulder and then just get pushed off, or get caught or get hit whilst doing so. And I just don't think he's the best at closing range either. He has minimal head movement, and his accuracy can drop, and especially when he's it can then leave with poor counters as well when his accuracy does drop, and that has been on multiple occasions. I've seen that. Curiel, as a fighter though, he's often able to save his power for the end of his combinations and leave off a real kind of lasting shot at the end of a combination, which can discourage an opponent from wanting to throw more. He is able to make the fight his fight, which is typically an in-close type of contest. He's got a nice tight guard. He's got good tight uppercuts that often come at the end of them combinations, and the real tight uppercuts were able to land on Rocha quite significantly. He is got decent timing. He knows when to throw, and his actual countering ability against Rocha wasn't really that bad. It was pretty good. I've not really seen him have to counter much, but when he was able to do it well. He is becoming more kind of willing to lean back to actually avoid exchanging. He can, throw, land his own, and then lean back, and that's something which I didn't really see much in the first Rocha fight, but I actually saw more in his last fight, which I thought was a bit of a development, and he wasn't really fully countering off of it, and it's not always the best to lean back because it can put you off balance, but still, for somebody who typically stands right in front of you and can be quite a big target, it's something a little bit different, and it is nicer. He doesn't need to get his shots all the way through cleanly to actually hurt and damage you. I mean, he was able to bust up his last opponent's nose from at least what it looked like to be no real clean punches. He was just kind of battering away at the arms and the little gaps in which he could find, and the opponent's nose was busted up. And of course, he does put his all into his combinations for the most part as well. But like I say, he does finish off even stronger. He, negative-wise, is pretty flat-footed, and I think his footwork is messier. He's often squaring up. He doesn't throw much at a mid-range, and if Rocha is able to keep it at a mid-range for longer, I think he'll be able to have success. He was able to have a bit of success at a mid-range early in their fights, and that was kind of, in my opinion, what picked him up a few of the earlier rounds. And if he can do that again, then maybe he might be able to have success for a longer period. He doesn't really offer too much defensive movement for the most part, and he's not as fast. His balance isn't the best. He throws body shots from quite a low position, which doesn't really disguise it that well. He can be a big target in front of you to hit, like I've touched upon, and he can, not give himself enough room to throw. If he is trying to throw in close, he can step in a bit too close, leaving himself, like I say, no gaps to actually be able to throw. Who do I think is going to win? I think that Raul Curiel is going to be able to win. I think he's going to be able to knock out Alexis Rocha in round 10. I think it's going to be a shock moment, but I believe with him continuously kind of being there as a presence, I think Rocha will probably have success in the earlier rounds, like I've mentioned, kind of picking off shots and throwing the occasional combination. But as he commits to more and more, he'll be stepping in more, he'll be leaving gaps, and if Raul Curiel can just capitalise upon the gaps, which I think are pretty easy to capitalise upon because he is just staying in range for so long, he's really not pulling himself out. I think the power of Curiel can, get to Rocha, and we've seen already that if Rocha takes too many shots, he will just start to trade. And I think if he is trading with somebody as powerful as Curiel, and he's got better accuracy, I believe, than Rocha, I think it will be, not, he just won't be able to deal with it. And I think one of the uppercuts could really land and damage Rocha if he follows up maybe one or two uppercuts, again, similar to how Santillan was able to knock out Rocha. I think that will happen, and I think it will be a big kind of dramatic moment as well. And then, it should progress on Raul Curiel well to then possibly fight a Sissoko or a Stanionis, who is still ranked pretty highly in the WBA, to be fair, or a Conor Benn, possibly, all good matchups. I think Conor Benn has had a bit of a back and forth with Curiel, but of course, like I mentioned, he might be waiting for a Garcia, but Curiel really should be getting and progressing well off of a win here, especially if it's a knockout as well, because Rocha is still, like I've mentioned, a big name. Moving on to speak about another fight on this card in which I wanted to talk about. It's Manuel Flores versus Jorge Chavez in a rematch. It's just for a California state kind of super bantamweight belt, nothing, too major, but it's a good rematch, and I think this is a must-see rematch. The first one, like I've touched upon already, was a shock, controversial decision where I really did feel like Jorge Chavez was the winner. This fight is just a good clash of styles between a slick defensive fighter who will try and frustrate the power puncher who wants to dance around and get to work and just kind of pick off his shots and real use, like I say, that good slick kind of defensive head movement, whilst the opponent in Flores is going to be wanting to pin you down and get to work. But of course, he wasn't able to do so, in my opinion, very well in the first fight. And also this fight is a good fight because they've both been around Golden Boy for a similar amount of time. They're at both a similar point in their career. Obviously, Flores had a loss on his record kind of just before he was getting stepped up into the higher levels, so that has kind of held back his career to an extent. But I do feel like he has to be able to get a win here to actually show that he can fight at a high level in the super bantamweight division. And this has kind of been a step up for both of them. So for, in my opinion, Chavez to fight and box the way that he was able to and look really good, it was a real kind of coming out performance for Chavez where he was able to show all his skills at the best. And in the first fight, Chavez was moving very well, basically in a complete flow state, staying, just kind of a step forwards and just being a step ahead of that of Flores. He was stepping off well with small, subtle movements, very good head movement, knowing when to tie up and coming with good short bursts of not the most powerful shots, but point scoring combinations where he was able to pair up shots nicely and just kind of confuse and overwhelm Flores. It definitely did look like it was an off night for Flores, but it was a very poor off night in my opinion. That's why I'm just so shocked that it was a draw the first time around. He was just walking down Chavez, but not throwing really anything, and he did look quite lost with Chavez's movement. I mean, he started to throw a bit at the end, and I think he can hurt Chavez through Chavez's confidence in his movements, because Chavez, as a result, does often come in with his hands low, and of course that's not really something in which you want to do against a power puncher like Flores. But I'm not sure if he's going to be able to slow down Chavez for long enough if he can't pin him down, because in that fight he was just standing in front of him and waiting for a moment to throw, but then it was far too late and Chavez has already kind of landed a quick combination and then stepped off to create a new angle by that point. So it was, again, like I said, I just don't know how it was given a draw the first time around, but I'm going to say that Jorge Chavez is going to be able to win a unanimous decision in this one. I think I'm going to go with two, I suppose, supposed upsets against the more fan favourite of a fighter, I suppose. I mean, I know Flores is a fan favourite and has been the one pushed better by Golden Boy, and the same with Rocha, but I'm going to go with a Jorge Chavez win via a unanimous decision. I think if he can get back in that flow state early, Flores really wasn't able to cut off the ring at all against him, and again I think he will just after a while kind of get resorting to just loading up and waiting. I mean, even if he tries to throw a lot more, I think Chavez will be able to get out of them spots and be able to make him look silly, because he will start to make more and more mistakes and leave more openings. Of course, there could be a moment where Flores can land a big shot and knock him out. He does have the power to do so, but I think general boxing skill wise, from what I've seen from Jorge Chavez, especially in that last fight, I do believe that Chavez is going to be able to outbox him and win by not even landing anything really, really powerful. I mean, maybe in the later rounds, if he's winning and winning convincingly, he can turn things up a little bit like that. But I think Chavez is the more skilled fighter out of the two of them. And then it'll be interesting to see who Chavez can fight next. Like I say, he's only at a kind of regional level at the moment, so I'm just not sure who they'd match him up against. I mean, a Shabazz Masood fight I think would be a good fight, but I feel like Matchroom want to progress him on a bit closer to a world title type of fight, and it's a bit too risky. A Patron Cruz fight could be a good fight. He's been fighting a lot in Mexico, not against the highest level of opposition, but he's 18-0, so that could be a good matchup. Or even a Marlon Tapales. Tapales has been kind of rebuilding against, or at least on paper, people with similar records to that of Chavez, so possibly that kind of a fight could happen. Of course, you know, if he beats Tapales when Tapales has been able to be on a good run post the Inoue loss, he can then really get himself in a good position, and I think he definitely could do that with his youthfulness. But of course, I just don't know if something like Tapales would take that fight, so it is difficult to see who Chavez could fight next. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like video if you didn't need a like video, subscribe if you're new. Sorry for being quite slow and ill in this video, but thanks for watching.